Erica here with Prep Scholar GMAT. Back today with GMAT scores for MBA programs, or what MBA programs really care about. Before we get started, I want to remind everyone that you can get one-on-one online tutoring from me or another GMAT expert with Prep Scholar GMAT. You can head over to our website to sign up or learn more about our other customized online prep options. Links are in the description. And as always, if you like this video, we've got a lot more great GMAT content. So check out our channel and subscribe for updates on new videos and live streams. In this video, we'll go through 3 things that MBA programs do care about in your GMAT score, 2 things they don't care about, and 1 key detail to remember. The first and most important thing that MBA programs look for is whether your total score out of 800 is above, around, or below the average for students admitted to that particular program. If your score is below the average total score for admitted students, you may be in trouble. Now, this doesn't mean that if your score is 10 or 20 points below the average, that your application is going straight in the trash. In fact, a score far off the average may not be immediately disqualified. Now, all of that said, a lower than average score is a pretty sizable red flag and will at least put you at a serious disadvantage when it comes to admissions. Now, on the other hand, if your score is around the average, so this means 10 or 20 points in either directions, there won't be any red flags on your application. If your score is significantly above the average, and again, 10 or 20 points isn't really significant, you may even get a boost on your application that could balance out a low GPA or a lack of work experience. But a higher than average score doesn't mean you'll definitely get in. Plenty of people with perfect and near perfect scores get rejected every year, so don't neglect the rest of your application. Average scores for students admitted to a program are usually made public. With a quick Google search for average GMAT score paired with the name of the school or program, you should have a pretty good idea of your chances. Now, as a quick note, a lot of folks are super concerned with the number on the front of their score. I hear so many people say, I just need something that starts with a 7. The difference between a 690 and a 700 seems really significant, but it's just the same as any other 10-point difference. So don't worry so much about what the number looks like. The second thing MBA programs look for is whether your verbal and quant section scores are balanced. A balanced score is one where verbal and quant are at around the same level. This means that if you're scoring a 700, but one section is much stronger than the other, you're likely going to be a weaker candidate than someone with a 700 who performed about the same on both sections. Now, an important note here. We consider percentile in determining whether or not a score is balanced, not raw score. So a balanced score will have a significantly higher raw quant score than raw verbal score, simply because quant is more competitive. There are more students scoring high on quant than high on verbal. However, a balanced score will show similar percentile rankings for quant and verbal. Now again, this doesn't need to be exact. A difference of 10 percentiles isn't going to matter too much. But a difference of 20 plus will often raise concerns. If your score isn't balanced, you aren't likely to be a balanced student, and unbalanced students aren't likely to succeed in business school. A third thing MBA programs look for is improvement over multiple tests. I have a lot of students who are concerned about having submitted previous scores that weren't their best. They fear that even if their final score is where they want it to be, admissions committees will see their earlier scores and make serious judgments about their candidacy. If you have taken all 8 of the GMAT tests you're allowed to take in your lifetime within a single year and didn't show significant improvement, then yes, this will likely scare some programs. Obsession is not an appealing quality in a candidate, especially if it isn't paired with progress. However, if you've taken a few tests and your score has gone up by a few tens of points, you've demonstrated dedication and an ability to learn from your mistakes. These are both very appealing qualities. So if you already submitted a score that wasn't good enough, don't freak out. Similarly, if your score is good enough, but you're looking to try again to get an even higher score, don't cancel your scores. If you perform better next time, cool. You showed that you could improve. But if you end up performing worse next time, you won't have any scores to submit. The first thing MBA programs do not look for is anything above the top few percentiles. Now, this applies mostly to total score. If you have a 760 already, don't try for higher. Literally no one cares where in the 99th percentile you are, so your energies are much better spent on the rest of your application. If you have a 99th percentile GMAT score and don't get into a program, a higher GMAT score would not have saved you. It was the rest of your application that got you rejected. This also applies to the verbal section. While there are huge jumps in percentile between a 48, 49, 50, and 51 on the quant section, anything from a 45 up on the verbal is a 99th percentile. This means that it doesn't really matter what your verbal score is above a 45. Now, a few points difference up here may have some impact on your total score, but it won't be large, especially compared to the amount of work that goes into getting any additional score gains at this level. Your time is much better spent building up your quant score to a similar level, or if your quant score is already as high as it's going to get, working on other elements of your application. The second thing that MBA programs do not look for is anything above average on IR or AWA. Now, this doesn't mean that IR and AWA don't matter at all, though it's true that some programs really do not care about these sections. For most programs, IR and AWA are mostly there to generate red flags. A score at or above average on either section isn't going to keep you out of any program you're interested in. Similarly, a score below average on IR or AWA probably isn't going to get your application thrown in the trash. However, if this IR or AWA red flag is paired with some other concern, like unimpressive essays or a mismatch between quant and verbal percentiles, it may risk your application. Okay, one final thing to keep in mind as you're applying to programs. If you're close enough to the GMAT score that a program wants that you could feasibly achieve it, and your current score is the only thing keeping you from being admitted, there's a good chance that the program will tell you. MBA programs want good candidates, so if you're what they're looking for, but they need a slightly higher score, they aren't likely to let you slip away. So if you're certain that all you need is another 20 points on the GMAT and then you're a shoo-in for next year, take a second to reevaluate. It's likely a bigger picture issue. If you have any questions on what we talked about today or suggestions for future videos, please leave a comment below. Thanks for watching and happy GMAT studies.